let's tell the story of humanity, but not from the perspective of humanity because that would be stupid. Let's tell it as part of the entire story of life on Earth because it is. Now, to do this, we're going to have to take some liberties, and I'll explain those at the end. So join me, won't you, in a thought experiment. Let's imagine far, far, far out in the distant reaches of the universe, there's an immortal race of beings composed of nothing but pure thought, glowing orb things. And billions of years ago, one of these, who let's call because why not? One of these is gazing around the cosmos, and when its gaze alights upon little Earth. And this is at the very start of life on Earth. So there's a tiny little smudge. It's just the proverbial primordial ooze, the little chemical soup from which life supposedly emerged. And so, it's like, hey, planet, you got a little, some kind of little gunk there. You might want to take care of that. And it bugs off for 1 billion years. Now, when it looks back, it's like, oh, because the gunk has now grown to cover the entire planet. And so it's like, cool. And it bugs off for another 1 billion years. But this time, when it looks back, it's like, whoa. Because the gunk, it's created this beautiful blue atmosphere, and there are these majestic oceans, and, the continents with lush life sprouting out of the ground. And is like, wow, cool. And so it hunkers down and starts binge watching Life on Earth. And it's watching so intently that, when its best friend, who let's call, because why not, happens to be wandering by, says to, hey, what are you watching? And says, this is a really cool thing. It's a rock, and then little thing, and then the whole planet, and then all this. And says, wow, that is cool. And so they both hunker down, and they're both watching. And then another one comes by, and another one comes by, and soon there's a huge crowd of non-corporeal beings composed of pure thought watching life do life stuff. And that's when something terrible happens. Now, time out, ding. We don't know exactly what this was. There have been about 5 of them in the history of life on Earth, and they're called extinction events. And everything basically dies. Everything goes extinct. We don't know what survived. We don't know how it survived. But the one that we know the most about is the most recent one, the one with the dinosaurs. And that was an asteroid, right? So they could have been a lot of different things, but let's just say, for the sake of getting on with the story, all 5 were asteroids, okay? Time in. Ding. So an asteroid hits. All life dies. Without anything to breathe it, the atmosphere starts thinning away, and then the oceans start vaporizing, and the once mighty waters are now mere damp patches in the sands of a rocky and barren worldwide desert. I mean, all of the assembled crowd is like, yeah, getting out of here. They all scatter because this is kind of gross. And says, hey, yeah, I know you like that thing, but let's get out of here. It was morbid. And is like, bye, gunk. And it goes away, and it goes through the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, right? And then finally 1 billion years later, it's like, I think I'm strong enough now. And it gazes back, and everything's back. And it's like, whoa! Now, time out, ding ding. Not the same species. All of those species are dead forever. Every time it happens, species die and they never come back. And I mean, look, if you lost a kidney and then a kidney suddenly reappeared, you're not going to be like, it's not the same cells. No, you're going to be like, whoa, a kidney. And so, time in, ding, ding, ding. That's what is like. It's like, whoa, it's back. And it's like, it's back. And it gets really excited. And it goes around to, and it's like, it's back. And it goes around to all of the other people that have been watching. And it's like, it's back. Remember that thing and the planet and the who? It's back. And everybody's like, nuh-uh. And it's like, way, huh. And soon the huge crowd is all back around watching. And in fact, it's a bigger crowd because now they all know there's this trick, and now they all want to see it. So, they're watching, and they're like, asteroid, because they really want to see this happen. So then, asteroid hits, everything dies, atmosphere vaporizing, once mighty oceans, damp patches, barren worldwide desert. And they're all in there to the seats, because it looks like everything's dead, and they're like, and life returns, yay! And the crowd goes wild, gunk, 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 gunk. It's amazing. It's the best show they've ever seen. And so there are 5 of these, right? So we did the first one and we did this one. And so, there's another one. Yay! And then there's another one. Yay! And then the dinosaurs. Hey, where is everybody? Because, once again, everybody's gone. And in fact, when looks around, it sees kind of slinking away too. And it calls to its friends like, hey, what's going on? Did everybody just get bored or something? And it's like, oh, man, I didn't want to have to talk to you about this. Look, we're leaving because we all just kind of figured out what this was. Okay, so time. It's going to talk about dogfights, and obviously it doesn't know anything about dogfights because dogs haven't evolved yet. But, it's seen lots of stuff. It's just fill in the blanks with whatever its analogy for dogfights is. Okay, so ding, ding, ding. Time in. This is like a dogfight, man. And one of the dogs is this gunk, and the other dog's the universe. I mean, and you... Look, I'm sorry, man, but you know how dog owners are like, oh, I love my dogs. Dog fight owners, right? I love my dogs. And you're like, oh, yeah, you love them so much you think, hey, I know what's fun. Let's just watch it get murdered. I'm not saying you're like that, but I kind of am saying you're like that. I mean, the universe is a big dog, and it throws asteroids at planets all the time. Sometimes asteroids twice the size of 4. Sometimes the universe throws planets at other planets. I mean, and sometimes, and sometimes, okay, so time. Now, because it is a non-corporeal being composed of nothing but pure thought that's been looking around for a long time, it knows lots of ways that planets can be destroyed that we don't know about yet, because we're not hyper-intelligent, non-corporeal beings composed of pure thought. So just fill in the blank with that's what it's talking about now. So time in. And even probably most likely, and so we just all started feeling like, this is icky, man. And so, look, I know you love this thing, but just kind of think through who that makes you, okay? So I gotta go and you should go. And there goes, yeah. And just then, that first little sprout, that first little, maybe it's a worm, pokes up out of the sands of the worldwide desert and goes, yay. Because it knows its friend is right. I mean, let's say you've been playing Russian roulette and you've already shot 5 blanks, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sure, you're relieved, but the next one's a bullet. And so, knows it should go. But just then a really cute species emerges. And it's like, oh. And sometimes you've been eating potato chips and you're starting to feel greasy and you should stop and you tell yourself, okay, I'll stop after the next chip. After the next chip. After the next. You just can't pull yourself away. And that's kind of what it's like. Because, so, is like, I'll stop after the next species. Ooh, that's cool. Okay, I'll stop after the next species. Man! It can't tear itself away. And that's why it happens to be watching when the gunk does the most amazing thing that it has ever seen. The gunk actually tears off a teeny tiny piece of itself and sends it to another planet. And time. This is, maybe obviously, the Apollo capsule going to the moon. And now think about what this looks like to a creature that doesn't have a body, so it doesn't have bodyism. This looks like a microcosm of the entire biosphere. It's got air, it's got water, it's got, minerals that came from the ground, and it's even got some of those, life forms, bacteria. Oh, and humans. If it doesn't have any kind of prejudice, this doesn't look like humans going to the moon. This looks like life itself going to the moon. All right, time in. Ding, ding, ding. So sees this and is like, yes! Yes! Oh, yes! And whatever the non-corporeal equivalent of tears are streaming down its non-corporeal composed of pure thought cheeks. It's a waterfall, man. It's like, oh, yes! Oh my God, Gunk! I'm sorry I ever doubted you! And it's really hysterically overcome with joy because what it is seeing in this moment when the gunk sends a tiny piece of itself to another planet, it is seeing the future when the gunk sends all of itself to another planet. It was heartbroken. It had thought that this creature that it loved so deeply was pretty soon about to die forever. It is seeing a creature that it thought would die forever figure out how to never die again. And scene. So that's the story. Let's talk about it. Obviously, this is an attempt to tell the story of life on Earth with some emotion, as if through the eyes of something that really cared about it. And now we care about it, but when we tell the story, we tend to tell it as if we know how it turns out, which we totally don't. So, to increase attachment and suspense, we took extreme liberties with extinction events, which almost certainly did not happen the way they happen in the story. So let's take a timeline, right? And so here are the species, and they all start dying out, and what almost certainly happened is that at the same time, new species were emerging that were more evolutionarily suited to the new environment. So, there was overlap. But the way this story tells it might be truer than the actual truth, because look, if you always tell the story with the overlap, you might lose sight of the most important fact. And the most important fact is that in an extinction event, there's one and only one guarantee, and that's extinction, this part. That is going to happen. This part, no guarantee. And so, by this story spreading them out so that everything dies, period of suspense, everything comes back, hopefully that makes really clear that it could go, everything dies, period of suspense, nothing ever comes back. And hopefully that makes clear that we've been getting really lucky so far. And hopefully that makes clear that we shouldn't be pushing our luck. Okay, so now let's talk about bodyism. Bodyism, shame, shame, shame. So let's say there's an alien that's shaped like a horse and an alien that's shaped like an emu, right? So the horse comes to Earth and it's going to start scouring around for the horses, right? And the emu comes to Earth and it's going to start scouring around for the emu. These beings have bodies, so they have bodyism, so they're going to come to a planet looking for a reflection of themselves. And that's why our narrator has no body, so that it doesn't come to the Earth looking for a mirror. And if you don't come to the Earth looking for the mirror, things look very different. In particular, the things that look like substances to us actually kind of look like machines. Let's take the air, right? There, it's just there. It's just air, right? But actually, every living thing breathes, and nothing breathes out the same stuff it breathes in. So this is actually a huge relay system, constantly handing stuff off between us. And not only that, but the air has living things inside it all over the place, breathing it. So it's kind of breathing itself all the time. It's a huge, constantly active air processing machine. It's not just some stuff. And the same goes for the water. I mean, not only does the water participate in the air processing machine through the precipitation cycle, but it itself also constantly being processed by the living things, both huge and infinitesimal, inside it. A constant machine that only stays the way it is because of the living things constantly processing it. It's a water processing machine. And when it comes to it, the same goes for the earth beneath our feet. I mean, it circulates much, much more slowly, but it also gets circulated as part of the air and part of the water. And fun fact, every single piece of dirt you have ever seen has been through the anus of a worm probably at least 1 billion times. Not the same worm, because that would hurt. But the point is, if you approach the earth without any kind of prejudice, there's no way you're going to be riveted by these teeny tiny creatures that are barely a percent of the total biomass of the biosphere. It's just not going to happen. You're going to be struck immediately by these huge freaking machines. You're going to be like, whoa, because there's a gas processing machine, a solid processing machine, a liquid processing machine, and you put them all together and it's a perpetual motion machine. These things are constantly taking the same elements and handing them off between each other, apparently with no need to ever stop. And you're going to be like, that's amazing! And it is amazing. It's more amazing than iPhones. And I mean, not for nothing, it contains iPhones. But isn't that strange? Because it's hard for us to really see iPhones as part of nature. And my friends, that's it right there. That's the whole point of all these videos right there. We can see very starkly what we've been avoiding. Because let's put it this way. Another word for air processing machine is lung. And another word for water processing machine is kidney. And inside ourselves, the thing that breaks down solids and turns them into life-sustaining nutrients, we call that a stomach. To a being without any prejudice whatsoever, the biosphere is self-evidently a single living being. And we don't want to see it. We really don't want to see it. I mean, hey, is it hot in here? I mean, I feel really itchy. We don't want to see it because if we admit that this is a single living creature, then we have to admit what we are. And we have to admit that we're cells. Because we are. That's what we are. We're cells. We never have been anything but cells, and we never will be anything but cells. I think we're really cool cells, but we're, I suppose, lung cells. And so is every other I'm sorry. So is every other independent. Every other independent thing is also a cell. Ain't none of them independent. We all depend for the success of our circulatory system upon our participation in the larger circulatory system of the being that created us, just as our cells, for their circulation, depend on their participation in the circulatory system of the being that created them. Our cells cannot circulate without participating in our circulatory system, and we cannot circulate without participating in this circulatory system. And I think it might be obvious why this might be something that we've been resisting for a long, long time and will probably resist for a long, long time more. Because it's a profound heresy against the human ego. To accept this strips us of a great many dear illusions. I mean, to really accept this is going to be very hard on humanity. It's going to break our hearts. And I mean, the only thing that is going to get us through it, I think the only thing that could get us through it, is nothing short of the meaning of life. Because once we really accept what we are, I mean, a cell and a leaf on a tree has a knowable purpose. And if we accept that we're like a cell and a leaf on a tree, then we can start to figure out our own knowable purpose. And I wouldn't worry about us not wanting to do it. Because again, if we belong here exactly as we are, like a cell and a leaf on a tree, we're probably going to be pretty interested in whatever our purpose turns out to be. And I have a few ideas on that, but before I get into any of that, I think I have to answer the deafening chorus that's screaming in both my ears. Over here, there's just millions of people just screaming like, oh, so this is a god. You're trying to make a new religion with a new god. God boy, God boy, God boy. And then over here, there's the people that are screaming, oh, what about evolution? Ha, ha, ha. Okay, so, God. No, this is not a God. This is a thing that has almost died several times. It's not omnipotent. It's not omniscient. This is an antidote to God. In full disclosure, I believe in God, but I believe in a God of mystery, not a God that's here to explain things for us. And this is an antidote to the gods of all the religions that claim to know everything and never mentioned this. This is a fact about human existence so profoundly important that once we accept it, anything that did not already mention it will not thereafter matter. So, what could be the meaning of life? Oh, no, evolution, right? Okay, God talk about that. What about evolution? Ha, ha, ha. I don't know. I mean, look, evolution is responsible for incredibly complex and coordinated systems inside us. So it stands to reason it could be responsible for incredibly complex and coordinated systems outside us, and even incredibly complex and coordinated systems that use us. Do you think a red blood cell has an awareness of the structure of the being whose byways it pulses within? There's no reason it has to. There's no reason to assume that we would be aware of the larger systems that we were created inside. I mean, let's put it this way. Do I believe that evolution could be responsible for a single organism covering a planet? I do. And in fact, the more I think about it, the more it seems pretty likely. And do I believe that evolution could then be responsible for that creature evolving inside itself, cells so specialized that they themselves would discover evolution? Yeah, I believe that. I don't know if that's likely, though, because, there's lots of arguments about evolutionary theory, but in general, the idea is that for a creature to evolve that kind of specialized cell, there would have to be environmental pressures on it that made that an advantageous adaptation. So, to understand ourselves, to look at ourselves as part of a larger being like a cell and a leaf on a tree, we have to tell our story as part of the story of the larger organism and the pressures upon it. So let's just do that again really quickly. Billions and billions of years ago, there appeared on this planet a single independently living creature. And in point of fact, it's the only independently living creature we've ever known of. And that creature grew to cover the entire planet, and it suffered many catastrophes, nearly dying many, many times, until it developed a very specialized cell. Now, there's lots of weird things about humanity, but if we look at ourselves in this context as part of the evolution of a larger creature, some of the weird things stand out in really stark relief. So let's start with what makes us worth it, right? We do destroy lots of things. We deplete the environment, and we cause extinctions, and we create nuclear bombs. Like, if we're supposed to be here exactly like this, what could possibly justify the price tag? Another is, most things that are created, they exist and they have a little turf that they kind of plop around in. But we don't have a turf. We kind of can go anywhere, and in fact, we can physically, if we decide to, reach every single part of this creature. And our imaginations allow us to repurpose anything for anything we can think of to do with it. So if we belong here exactly as we are, like a cell and a leaf on a tree, why do we have the keys to the kingdom? And now, finally, and please don't take this the wrong way, because it's possible to take this sentimentally, and I do not mean it sentimentally, I mean it clinically. Why do we have so much love? I mean, look, love exists in other social creatures for a very specific bonding purpose. A wolf cub can love its mother, but it can't love Mother's Day. We can love Mother's Day. We can love all sorts of anniversaries. We can love colors. We can love paper. We can love ideas. We can love things that eat us and things that we eat. We can love pain. If we exist on purpose, like a cell and leaf on a tree, if this is how we're supposed to be, was mit all the love? So, let's look again at the environmental pressures on that creature. That creature that has almost died several times just from being here. And what it eventually evolved was a being that it really bet the farm on. It sunk everything into. It allowed access to every part of itself so that it could do the impossible. So that it also, it implanted in that thing's imagination a vision of the heavens. Our imaginations have always put something amazing and desirable in the sky. And as far as I know, we're the only organism that even gazes at the sky. I mean, other things look up, right, to try and find predators, but we gaze. What else gazes? So it created this creature that gazed at the sky and that had access to every single part of itself so that that creature would learn how to get there. And it gave that creature a truly ridiculous capacity for affection so that when that creature left, it would want to take everything with it. And that's the meaning of life. The meaning of life has been a big missing puzzle piece. And it turns out the shape of the piece is us. And what we were actually missing was the puzzle. The puzzle is the creature that created us. The creature that created us to save it. People assume that the meaning of life is like personal, like I want to find my meaning of life. But how does it make any sense that a single organism could have its own meaning of life separate from the meaning of the entire thing? Yes, life has a meaning. All life has one meaning, and that's to get the heck out of here. And that's it. I mean, make of it what you will. Thanks for listening. That's the point of all of this. We're inside a huge being that made us to save it, and we should get to work. And thank you for listening. There's another video, but it's not really a continuation. It's kind of like an appendix or an afterword. And so if you're the kind of person who likes to read page after page of thank you for this and thank you for that, you're welcome to come along. But you're not really missing anything if you don't watch it. So again, I really value your attention, and I look forward to hearing anything you have to say. Thanks.